Hi there, it's Bruce Wallace from Dundee and Victoria Chess Club in Bonnie, Scotland. And we're going to present to you a game that was played in 1989 between Ed Spencer and Frank Stevenson on a cold winter's evening in the Polish Club in Dundee as part of the Tayside and Fife Chess Association League Division 1. Now the reason why we're showing you this is because Frank Stevenson has been a member of Dundee and Victoria Chess Club for 21 years. And as part of the celebrations, we've made him the subject of our player focus on our website. And as part of that, we asked him to choose what he thought was his best ever game. And this was it. Now, at that time, Frank was about 1750 in terms of his ELO rating. And Ed Spencer, who's playing white here, was about 2,200 and is a very strong player indeed. So Frank managed to get a win here, and it's a tremendous game. So there won't be too much analysis. Frank likes to play the King's Indian, but this is a good exemplification of his style of play. So, white kicked off with d4. Frank played knight f6, and then c4 by white. g6, g3, bishop g7, bishop g2, c6, knight f3, castles, castles, d5, c takes d, c takes d, knight c3, knight c6. Now here, the analytical assistant for white recommends queen b3. However, Ed plays bishop f4. Now, Ed's style of play is highly unconventional, but can be quite devastating. Frank here plays knight h5, but if we go back, the analytical assistant recommends queen b6 here. But Frank's going to get that bishop. And then knight comes to e5, and this is an unusual move. Knight takes f4, g takes. A strange pawn configuration for white here. Now Frank plays bishop e6. On that move, the assistant's recommending that Frank chops the e5 knight with his knight on c6. However, bishop e6 is definitely playable. Then Ed plays e3. Frank plays f6. Knight back to d3. Bishop back to f7. Now, not only providing good protection for black's king, which is invulnerable at the moment, but also having the two bishops safely tucked away in a dragon's lair. Now white plays rook to b1 there, but the recommendation from the assistant was rook to c1, getting to come into action on the open file. Perhaps Ed thought he would get it onto b1 to avoid any attacks on the long diagonal from the dark square bishop. e5, a brave move from Frank here, opening up the position. F takes, d takes e, and then the knight takes. Now the recommendation from the assistant there was for the knight to take on e5, but the knight comes to f4, and again a rather unbalanced position here, but black looks very good indeed. And a tremendous move from Frank here, bringing his queen right into the proximity of the white king, and with a knight on e5 has all sorts of threats here. Knight takes the pawn, rook comes to the d file, coming down hitting the queen on d1 should the knight move. So Ed quite correctly gets his queen off the rank and puts it onto e2. g5, another great move from black here, forcing the knight to move. Ed comes in with a check from the knight on e7. The king must move to h8, and now the knight comes to f5 attacking the queen. The queen must move, and g4 is the only available square given the two knights. However, exchange here is almost forced. Queen takes queen, knight takes queen, and now the knight is threatened with the black g-pawn, and there's a knight hovering around white's king position. The two bishops are in beautiful positions, raking down the long diagonals, and the rooks are about to swing into action. Black is far better developed than white here. Knight comes back to h3, and now bishop e5, and black is definitely ahead here depending on white plays. This drops the pawn, and the recommendation here is bishop takes e2, just as Frank plays. And we see the power of the bishops here, covering the whole board. Knight back to g3, and there's a massive plus for white now. And what black should do here, can you see it? Take the pawn on b1, and has got a massive advantage. But I think they were both in time trouble at this stage, so it's very difficult to make precise moves. Frank brings the rook to d2. Knight to f3, hitting the rook on d2. So the rook comes back, defending the bishop on e5. A tremendous game, this. And then h3 from white, forcing the knight to make a decision. Frank now pulls off a cracking little move. Knight takes a3. So if f takes the knight, bishop takes the knight on g3. So white takes the knight takes the bishop on e5, and then the other knight reciprocates by chopping the g2 bishop. Rook to a1, hitting the bishop. Frank takes the knight on e5. Rook takes the bishop on a2, and black is still ahead here. Knight to f4. Rook takes a7, and black is still ahead. This is a tremendous game. Knight takes h3 check. King to h2. Knight to f4, and here white lost on time. That was a tremendous performance by Frank, and it's a good example of the way he likes to play chess. We hope he has many more years at Dundee and Victoria Chess Club, and many superb games like this. And we also hope that he enjoys watching this video, and we'll be making more soon, so see you soon on YouTube.